Shalom. I want to give all praises, all honor, all glory to Yahweh, Bahashem Yahushai, Bahashem Hakodash, the blindness of the apostles and elders of Great Millstone, and peace and salutation to all the brothers out there pushing this word with truth and sincerity with charity, and peace and salutations to all the brothers and sisters that have been scattered to the four corners of the earth that may behave and look like the other nations today. Shalom. This is the brother Debaria, and this is the part two to they speak loftily about oppression. And this is an article I want to read. It says from an article, El País. It says, Apache historian questions official narratives. How is it possible that 120 soldiers cut off the feet of 8,000 of our brave indigenous people? Alfonso Borrego, the great-grandson of Geronimo, and I wonder how he got the last name Borrego. It says, the great Apache leader says that while the Spaniards certainly harmed his people, Anglo invaders were the ones who committed genocide against American Indians. This is a picture of Alfonso Borrego in Santa Cruz de Tenerife, Tenerife. Alfonso Borrego is the great-grandson of Geronimo, a prominent leader and medicine man from the Bendoco band of the Apache people. Geronimo was known for his fearlessness. He resisted both the Mexican and American militaries when they attempted to remove his people from their tribal lands in the late 1800s. Borrego, 66, has spent years researching what happened to his people and his great-grandfather while speaking with El País. He discusses the various conflicting narratives that have been pushed over the past century. Some say that the Spanish drove the indigenous near extinction in the United States, while others suggest that the Anglo colonizers were far more cruel against civilian populations. Born in El Paso, Texas, Borrego generally rejects the official history about the conquest that has been constructed by the United States. At school, they didn't let us speak Spanish. They told us that the Spaniards were the worst of the worst, but that doesn't match my research. Borrego has also delved into the difficult final years of Geronimo, who surrendered to the American Army in 1886 and until his death in 1909 was exhibited at fairs and parades by the gringos in a humiliating fashion. Gringos being so-called white people who are Edomites, Idumeans, the children of Esau, the self-proclaimed Caucasian white man today. And Yahweh is the true and holy name of the Father. Bahashem is coming in the name of, and Yahushai is the true and holy name of his Son, the exclusive Lord and Savior of the Israelites. You so-called Negroes, so-called Latinos, so-called Hispanics, so-called Native Americans, indigenous Indians of the Americas, so-called West Indians, Caribbean Indians, Haitians, West Africans, and those that have been scattered to the four corners of the earth that may behave and look like the other nations today. It says, an engineer and historian by profession, Borrego has become a highly sought after figure at history conferences in America and Europe. I visited indigenous reservations. I've met with the tribal chiefs, with indigenous people, students. I've offered a contrast to what the textbooks say. There certainly was an indigenous genocide, but while the Spaniards committed atrocities, the Anglos were the ones who carried it out. He affirms in a conversation with El País during his brief visit to Madrid. Indigenous chiefs on reservations don't want to talk about this because they fear reprisals from the government and losing the casinos that they've been given as compensation. And I want to step right there and say that the so-called Caucasian, right, man today, the self-proclaimed white man, all right, is a nation as a whole, whether it be the Anglos, the British, the Americans, the English, the Germans, the French, the Russians, Spaniards, Australians. These are all Edomites today. Those so-called Caucasian, self-proclaimed white men who were claiming to be from these lands, they are all Edomites. And like I've always said before, it's the same slavery, just different variations. The so-called Negroes, Latinos, Hispanics, Native Americans, and indigenous Indians of the Americas, the Israelites, the nation of Israel, have all been enslaved together by the so-called white man today, who is really red. But the slavery has been in different types of variations. You see, real quick, let's look at the word variation. A change or difference in condition, amount, or level, typically with certain limits. A different or distinct form or version of something. What is a simple definition of variation? The act or process of varying. The state or fact of being varied. An instance of varying. The extent to which or the range in which a thing varies. Same slavery, different variations. Same slavery, different variations. I'll keep reading. It says, and what I mean by that is that, again, I'll say the Edomites, the Idumeans, the so-called Caucasians and proclaimed white man today, the wicked, the devil, the deceiver, this nation of people, the so-called Europeans, Americans, Spaniards, Russians, Australians, Germans, French, British, English, so on and so forth. These are Edomites, and they have put the children of Israel, the so-called Negroes, Latinos, Hispanics, Native Americans, indigenous Indians of the Americas, West Indians, Caribbean Indians, Haitians, West Africans, and those that have been scattered to the four corners of the earth that may behave and neglect other nations today, they have put them under captivity, oppression. They have committed atrocities, heinous acts, mass murders, robbery, deception. Same slavery, different variations. This is Jeremiah 50 and 33. It says, Thus saith Yahweh, Bahashem Yahushai of hosts, the children of Israel, right? The northern kingdom, the so-called Native Americans, indigenous Indians, so-called Latinos, Hispanics today, and the children of Judah, so-called Negroes, so-called Haitians, so-called Jamaicans, so-called West Africans today, were oppressed together. Where? Here in the Americas, the New World, Arsareth, the land where never mankind dwelt, the last conquest, were oppressed together, and all that took them captives held them fast. They refused to let them go. You see? Same slavery, different variations. It says, Indian chiefs on reservations don't want to talk about this because they fear reprisals from the government and losing the casinos that they've been given as compensation. Borrego, who serves as president of the Cultural Heritage Society of the Royal Road of the Interior Lands, thinks that it's crucial to uncover the truth about what happened. Yeah, because a lot of the 2/3 of our people, which Mr. Borrego here, the grandson of or great grandson of Geronimo, probably believes that by uncovering this truth, they can somehow get some kind of reparations, okay, from the governments. You see, but what does it say in the Jeremiah 50 and 33? It says, "The Redeemer is strong." So like in Jeremiah 50 and 33, it says, "Thus saith the Lord Yahweh, Ba'ashem Yashai of hosts, the children of Israel and the children of Judah were oppressed together, and all that took them captives held them fast. They refused to let them go. The Redeemer is strong, and Yahweh of hosts is his name. He shall thoroughly plead their cause, that he may give rest to the land and disquiet the inhabitants of Babylon." You see, the Lord is going to be our revenge. And being on top of the heathen and putting Esau, Edom into subjection and inheriting the kingdom of heaven, all right, and the whole earth and all the nations subdued under us, that is the real reparation that we're going to receive. That's the vengeance of the Lord. But 2/3 of our people don't see that. Now, you go on to read, it says, as an example, he mentions the story of Juan de Oñate from 1550 to 1626, the first Spanish conquistador to go up the Rio Grande into New Mexico. Oñate is accused of cutting the right foot off of 8,000 indigenous people. That's what it says in the history books, at least. You see, and we just read previous in this article, right, that it says in this top paragraph here, it says, bottom portion, it says, some say that the Spanish drove the indigenous near extinction in the United States, while others suggest that the Anglo colonizers were far more cruel against civilian populations. You see? But let me read before that, actually. Right. This paragraph here says, while the Spaniards certainly harmed the people, Anglo invaders were the ones who committed genocide against American Indians. So both the Anglos, the Spaniards, the French, the British, they are all committing atrocities and committing genocide against our people. All of them together. You see? It says, for 9 years, Borrego traveled all over New Mexico to identify the tremendous atrocities that allegedly took place. he came across a document drafted by a Spanish sergeant on May 1st, 1598, which described how Oñate, upon encountering two indigenous people, gave them clothes and gifts. Subsequently, more indigenous showed up to receive gifts. Of course, they're going to put documents in the books about the so-called good things that they did. You see? I thought, how strange. Weren't the Spanish supposed to kill them and cut off their heads? And this is a picture I started off with, which is the Apache leader. It says, the Apache leader Geronimo and three other indigenous men on a car, circa 1904, placed there by American captors. You see, so these men will become a laughing stock, man, a showcase. Okay. Like it says here, it says Geronimo, who surrendered to the American Army in 1886 and until his death in 1909, was exhibited. They become an exhibit. Was exhibited at fairs and parades by the gringos in a humiliating fashion. And there's scriptures on that too, but I'm not going to get into that because I want to keep going and pull some other scriptures out that I already have set down. It goes on to read, it says, Borrego kept looking for proof about the 8,000 Indians who lost their feet to the Spaniards. However, again and again, the heads of the tribes couldn't offer up details, graves, or human remains. They merely assured him that it had happened. The historians note that Oñate's entourage was made up of 539 people. 120 were soldiers, 9 were priests, and the rest were women and children. How is it possible that 120 soldiers managed to cut off the feet of 8,000 of our brave people? Tribal elders told him that the Spaniards had rifles. Rifles? The old ones that took several minutes to load, where the bullets went all over the place? Our people are warriors. It's not like them to simply not fight. 120 soldiers against 8,000 indigenous people. I told the chiefs, it's better that you don't tell anyone that story. It's shameful. They looked at me with resentment and walked away. Yeah, because Esau often exaggerates on their victories so that they can look like a great people, man. You see, while this man is walking around trying to prove things that he already knows for sure happened, okay, he's receiving resentment from his elders because he's trying to muzzle, all right, the damage. It doesn't matter how the damage or who did the damage. The point is that this nation of people, this white, so-called white race, all right, committed genocide against our people, and there are crafty people who love to manipulate the facts and the evidence. That's the point. Okay? Which brings me to the scripture. Psalm 73 and verse 8, it says, they are corrupt and speak wickedly concerning oppression. They speak loftily. All right? They are corrupt. They manipulate everything. They lie. They twist everything. Okay? They speak evil of our people. All right? And they speak highly of it in a prideful sense. Okay? They lift up statues and celebrate celebrations and name towns and all these things. They do it in memory of the atrocities and the genocide and the massacres and the theft and the robberies and the deceptions that they have performed upon our people. You see? And this is a statue of the Spaniard. Okay? Borrego is a promoter of the recovery of the Royal Road, the Camino Real, the 1,500-mile south-north road that the conquistadors used to reach present-day New Mexico. Only the Mexican part is declared a World Heritage Site by UNESCO. And why not the U.S. side? He wonders. I asked the United States National Park Service about this. They just say that the Spanish carried out tremendous atrocities. They tell me to leave it alone. Yeah, because like I just said previous, the point is that the so-called white race, the so-called Caucasian European races, all right, have done all these things to our people, and they manipulate the evidence. They blame each other when it was a nation as a whole who has done this to our people. You see? This is Psalms 55 and 21. It says, the words of his mouth were smoother than butter, but war was in his heart. His words were softer than oil, yet were they drawn swords. You see? All right? This is the devil that we're dealing with here, man. A deceiver. Okay? It says, the reservations where the Indians were sent are all in states with Hispanic names: Montana, Colorado, California, New Mexico. In the north, there are none, except one for Indians who fled Canada. Why aren't there reserves in Ohio, Tennessee, Kentucky, Georgia, Virginia, or New York? Why? The answer, according to him, lies in the arrival of the English in Massachusetts years after Oñate showed up. They were dying of cold. They were all going to perish. The Wampanoag Indians felt sorry for them. They taught the British how to plant corn, fish, and hunt to survive. But where are the Wampanoag today? Not one left. Why? Because the English killed them all. People say no, it was smallpox. Smallpox? Then why were the indigenous under Spanish rule not affected? The truth is that the Anglos wiped them out in the north. That's what really happened. Regarding Geronimo, his great grandfather, Borrego recalls that he was a shaman, not a chief. He was a very dignified man and a representative of the tribes, and the gringos hunted him down, crushed him, took away his dignity, took him to prison in Florida to separate him from his people. They started touring him all over the country like a Hollywood show. He died without dignity. The U.S. presidency did that. You see? And the truth is that there are written documents, first-hand account books by the Spaniards themselves confessing all of the atrocities that they had committed against the indigenous peoples of the Americas, the northern tribes of the nation of Israel. You see? So if he's somehow proven that the English, the British, the Anglos, these other Europeans also did the same thing, and there's a big cover up on what was done and was not done by each group, which is one group, the nation of Esau, Edom, the Edomites, the Idumeans, the so-called Europeans, so-called Caucasians, self-proclaimed white man today, it proves more and more that this is indeed Esau, Edom, the Edomites. It's just more and more proof. Okay, which 2/3 of our people are not going to be able to understand fully, but the elect will, because ultimately this is for the elect. Okay, and I'm going to read one more. This is Psalms 51 and Salaki, let me get it. This is Psalms 51 and verse 2. It says, yeah, in heart ye work wickedness, ye weigh the violence of your hands in the earth. The wicked are estranged from the womb. They go astray as soon as they be born, speaking lies. Their poison is like the poison of a serpent. They are like the deaf adder that stoppeth her ear, which will not hearken to the voice of charmers, charming never so wisely. Break their teeth, O Yahweh, in their mouth. Break out the great teeth of the young lions, O Yahweh. Let them melt away as waters which run continually. When he bendeth his bow to shoot his arrows, let them be as cut in pieces. You see, as a snail which melteth, let every one of them pass away, like the untimely birth of a woman, that they may not see the sun. You see, because ultimately the revenge, all right, of Yahweh Bashim Yahushai for his people, all right, is going to fall upon Esau, Edom, all right, great and terribly. Okay, so I hope that this was edifying, and I want to give all praises, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Bahasham Yahushai, Bahasham Rachakwadash. Double honors to the apostles and the elders of Great Millstone, and peace and salutation to all the brothers out there pushing his word in truth and sincerity with charity. Shalom and abad babal.